Hi, this is Scott with Specter Gear, and it's Wednesday, so that means once again it's time for some Wheelgun Wednesday content. And what I want to do today is a follow-up to the Wheelgun Wednesday content I did the last time. I did actually several videos over the span of a couple of days talking about Speedloader durability. Yeah, I had done a video where I was comparing the different types of Speedloaders, the Safariland to the HKS to the 5-star. And in there, I talked a lot about some of the stuff that I used to do back in the day to prove just how durable the Safariland Speedloaders were. Talked about tossing them along the ground, throwing them against walls and stuff to demonstrate to the class how good those loaders were and why that should be the loader they should be looking to select to carry on their duty belts. Now, there's an important reason why I did that, and I never really mentioned what caused me to make that comparison on site. And it has to do a lot with with today's video, because what I did as a follow-up was I did actually kind of demonstrate some of the antics that I used to do at the range, and I drop tested that Safariland Speedloader a few times from multiple different angles. I tossed it on the ground, kicked it up against a garage door, skittering along the driveway 2 or 3 times, as I recall. I think it was 3 times, and then came in and put it on the table, and the only damage to the Speedloader was the little button had popped off of the loader, but I was able to actually load rounds. So I recommend you take a look at the video, because the setup here is taken about as long as the damn video took. But the upshot was, it was a pretty good demonstration of just how durable Safariland Speedloaders are. But once again, why was I doing that comparison in the classroom? Well, it was because I already knew how fragile the HKS loaders were, and I had seen them break many, many times. So what I'm going to do today, just to kind of once again show my receipts and prove my point, I'm going to take this HKS number 10 loader, loaded with some dummy rounds. I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to subject it to the same test that I did for the Safariland, and we'll see just how durable the HKS loaders are or are not. So without further ado, let me go ahead and break, and we'll take it outside and actually start the test. Okay, here we are with the torture test of the HKS number 10 loader with the dummy rounds in. We're going to do just like with the Safariland test. We'll start dropping it from a height of about 6 feet. We'll go bullet tips down, knob down, and then we'll go ahead and drop it on its side. And then we'll do an accelerated drop test. We'll do 2 of those by tossing it straight into the ground. So let's go ahead and start with the bullet tips down drop test. All right. Okay, let's go knob down. So good so far. Okay, let's do a side drop. I'm not seeing too much damage so far. Okay, everything's still in place. Let's go ahead and do the accelerated test now, and let's give it a nice toss. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna have to pause the camera because I have to recover a handful of parts, so I'll be right back. Okay, we'll take this in and look at this on the table for a closer look, but thus endeth the test. The Speedloader completely self-destruct. Well, it didn't self-destruct. It was destroyed by a simple toss to the ground. So, wow. Okay, remember how well the Safariland did, and let's have a look at this. So I'll go ahead and break at this point, and we'll go in and look at this on the table and do kind of a post-mortem. Well, that didn't go so well. If you saw, let me get this out of the way here. If you have seen the Safariland Comp I Speedloader crash test, you know that it survived the gravity drop test. It survived the accelerated test twice, actually. It was tossed straight to the ground. Then it survived a trip up the driveway, skittering along the ground 3 times. 2 of those times it slammed against a garage door at high velocity. or high velocity in terms of being thrown. And the only damage to the loader was a little part broke off, one of the little knob to secure the rounds broke off, or not to secure the rounds, but to lock the rounds in place. But I was able to come in and successfully load the rounds into the gun, so it still functioned as a loader. The HKS didn't get all that far at all. The second we put a little bit of velocity onto that toss, it just shattered. There's a lot of the pieces I was not able to recover because they're in my lawn. But this thing not only broke, I mean, it just came apart in so many different ways. The little wings here to hold the rounds in place, they busted off. The little tensioner ring busted off. The whole damn thing just came apart. How about that? The main disappointment was the body itself right here cracked. And it shattered is what happened. It didn't just break, it shattered. And that, I think, has a lot to do with the type of plastic that is being used. There are certain types of plastics, and I know this from manufacturing slings and dealing with things like side release buckles and other pieces of hardware for our slings. I know that certain plastics have a lot more flex to them, and they're not as brittle. And those plastics cost a little bit more money. And consequently, I think they're the same plastics that are used by Safariland to make their loaders, or at least JFS, who makes them for Safariland, has plastics that can take an impact without shattering. The HKSs apparently are not able to do that because when they get a hard impact, they just come undone, and they literally explode. I mean, this thing looks like it blew up. So in terms of ruggedness, durability, the HKS is a massive thumbs down. Now there's like I mentioned before, I already knew this because I've seen this happen before. Now the accelerated drop test, it was my left arm. I just tossed it to the ground. I didn't even use my right arm, and I didn't even wind up because I was standing behind the camera. I just gave it a little fling. That's it, just like that. That was about the hand movement. So it wasn't, a 90-mile-an-hour pitch. It literally was just a toss to the ground with a little bit more emphasis, and that was enough to do it in. And okay, take it for what it's worth, but in terms of sheer durability, the HKS doesn't have it. Now, you might ask, well, how is this practical in terms, because right away people are going to start, getting defensive. And I get that. You don't like to hear that a piece of equipment that you've selected is not up to the task. So people right away will start saying, well, that's unrealistic based on this, based on that. So let's say you've got one of these, you've got a couple of these loaders in a pouch on your belt, and you get involved in a ground fight, and you're literally rolling around on the ground. You're running into stuff, bumping into stuff, and then it turns into a shootable event. There's something that might break one of these loaders. Dropping the loader, apparently, can break the loader. So if you fumble a load, and it ends up flying away and hits the ground, and that's the only speed loader you have. And if you don't think you can't fumble a speed loader, trust me, I've seen it done. Is your speed loader going to be in one piece when you get there? That's my big question, because it doesn't take much to break one of these. Now normally what'll happen, and one thing I didn't point out was on the third gravity drop where I was just letting it go, it felt a little loose already. And as I said, one of the problems with this is just a bump can actually cause, and let me grab one of the loaders and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So because the way the rounds are retained, so what retains them, there's a star, and actually, we've got this thing taken apart so we can sort of see it. So you've got this little star here, and what it does is when it locks into the detent, which is now missing. By the way, it's normally, this spring is what holds the detent. But this turns, and it actually, this little aluminum piece here captures the rim of the cartridge. That's what actually holds it. But what causes that part to stay in place is this little ball detent. So you've got this little, it's a roll pin is what it is, and it's limited by 2 other roll pins, and you just have this little ball detent. So if you give it enough of an oomph, you can get it to release. So it's in its locked position now. you bump something hard enough, sometimes you can get it to pop over and let it go. And that's usually actually what I used to see. And it's what I expected to see on the first couple of gravity tests, because back when I used to do these in the classroom, oftentimes when it would hit the ground, it would override. Actually, it would override and release. Usually if you held it like that with the bullet tips to the left, you knew you were going to hit, you could get that to drop over and let them go. And that's sort of what I was expecting to occur. But also, too, when we would do the tests where we would throw these things across the room on the ground, trust me, I've seen this before. I've seen the insides of a broken HKS Speedloader more than once. So I wasn't surprised by the results. I actually wasn't going to even do this because, again, it stirs up controversy and gets people pissed off, because people don't like to hear, again, when they've chosen a piece of kit and it's not up to the task. But in terms of durability, ruggedness, and the ability to really get the job done effectively, aside from that pocket thing, which again is a rare set of circumstances, I'm always going to select a Safariland Speedloader. Now, the question remains, though. Grab one real quick here. See if I can find it in a hurry. I guess the question remains, the 5-star, which is a similar design, but is not made out of fragile, brittle plastic, but is instead made out of aluminum. I guess the question now is, how well will this one survive? So that'll probably be the topic for next week's Wheelgun Wednesday. And I'm not terribly concerned about this thing coming apart, but what I am concerned about is the degree of deformation or bending we might see in the aluminum. But we might actually see the true reason why the 5-star exists as a loader. So I'll do due diligence, and I'll go ahead and subject one of these to a crash test as well, and we'll see how well that one works out. But with that, I think we've got something interesting out of today's video, so I will thank you for watching and or listening, and remind you that regardless of what speedloaders you select, Specter Gear manufactures some pretty cool little speedloader pouches for them. So HKS 5-star, and then of course the Safariland loaders. We've got a full line of speedloader pouches for all of those, so be sure to stop by and check it out. So thank you very much for watching and listening. This is Scott from Specter Gear. Have a wonderful day.